One is a suspenseful picture with intense drama between not just the lead characters, but the actresses who portrayed them. The other is a slightly more modern take with two famous real-life siblings in the lead roles. Whatever happened to Baby Jane? They remade it.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of They Remade It. I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
And little disclaimer at the top of the show, I apologize if I sound in and out, or that all of a sudden I have a nice baritone. Allergies and or illness is kicking my ass right now, so...
You gotta drink that hot tea.
Yeah, I at least have, I have cold proto-tea with me, which is to say water.
That's pretty good. Oh, okay.
It's like the birthplace of tea, but yeah, I didn't really have much else to go with it, so I am having water to keep my throat even slightly usable right now. So
I thought you meant like a cold bottled green tea. I was like, okay, yeah, that's close, but
nope, yeah, just a tall glass. Well, it's not even a glass; it's a plastic cup. So it's not. There's nothing too fancy going on with my setup right now.
Just a small Dixie Riddle cup in front of you filled with water from the tap.
I mean, I swear, man, those things, like, water from one of those, like, small little Dixie cups, that shit tastes different. That is it hits different than most other things. It
is. There's got to be some, like, toxin from the paper used to make it that contaminates the water. It makes it taste good, but...
Yeah, just, like, sitting out in, like, a hospital or just, like, gathering whatever crap is floating through the air. It's like, oh, well, this tastes good.
Yeah. Only good thing about the hospital, it smells bad in there. It smells like dirty latex, and it's just all the harsh lighting. I don't like hospital smell.
Oh, yeah. I had to go to one relatively recently. Not for, like, anything serious, but I was getting an evaluation done. And I was like, oh, no, I don't like being here.
Same. I actually had a scan on my leg like 2 weeks ago, and I just went to the urgent care because I didn't want to pay a bunch of money, but they didn't have the machine that they wanted to use, so I had to go to the hotel. I had to go to the hospital and sit there for 2 hours.
Damn. Are you okay?
Yeah. It's nothing. It's nothing major. Turned out to be nothing major. Just trying to get my money.
All right then. Fair enough.
Anyways.
On that lighthearted note, do you want to go first with your deal? Because I honestly don't have a whole lot for mine anyway. Or maybe, I guess I would need to go first. I don't know.
I can go first just because then I'll have a small break before I do the synopsis. But
gotcha.
So yeah, I was a little across the board these past couple of weeks doing a bunch of different things outside of work. Getting caught up on a couple of shows that I fell behind on. I know I've brought it up on the show in the past. I still keep up with The Simpsons just because I've kept up with it for so long. And I feel like I watch it in mid-season increments. Like, the second half of the newest season is completely out, so I guess I'll just watch 8 or 9 episodes of that in a row.
Fair.
Just things like that. I did end up watching the new show Invincible, which everyone has gone ballistic over. It's pretty good. I like it. It's pretty good. I do not get the hype for it though.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple odd scenes here and there. I think it's mostly just people going on the big trend is for some reason lately is, what if Superman but evil? And mostly I think it's just people just getting tired of superhero movies where everything's so poignant and nice.
Right.
But I think this one,
I can see that.
I guess this one hits different because with the benefit of animation is that they can get away with doing a lot of shit that a lot of the stuff like the boys and everything can't even get away with, or even capable of showing. Because, like, there's a few of the bigger scenes that I obviously won't spoil, but it's like, there's some insane destruction scenes in Invincible that are just like, oh, shit. So that's what it's like really just thinking about it, it's like, oh yeah, if there really was a completely invulnerable being from another planet as strong as Superman, if he wanted to, he could just kind of like puff us out of existence.
I agree with that. I think that's a good portion of it. I had been I had been thinking about it earlier, and perhaps part of it is also just a decent amount of people who did read the original source material, like a decade or so ago when it came out, and they're just excited that it's finally being adapted.
Yeah.
Because it feels like every time I see one of those memes or like short little clips or something posted, there's like 10 people in the comments immediately that are like, oh, just wait until season 2. I won't spoil it, but this happened. People sort of going off about that. So
right. And I figure
maybe that's it.
I figure they just keep jumping the shark.
Yeah, probably.
The only thing I know from that comic universe is that the character Jackie Estacado is also in it, which is the main character from the video game The Darkness, with Mike Patton as the Darkness, and that's the only thing I have of value from that entire universe, because I think that's silly.
Well, that was... thank you for contributing that. I played The Darkness an extremely long time ago, so I kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even play The Darkness. I played The Darkness 2.
Yeah.
I was a kid. But anyways, yeah, so I watched that. Speaking of games, I went ahead and got Resident Evil Village, and I played through it. I've played through it twice now, and I'm slowly working my way through a third playthrough.
Damn.
Just because of all the different like trophies that go with it on the PS5, which is the platform I got it on.
Mm-hmm.
Like do a run in this amount of time, do a run using only this weapon, things like that. And I haven't gotten bored of it. It's really well put together. I've said it before, and I know that Resident Evil 7 was a good game because I've seen playthroughs of it since it came out. But I did not touch it because I had bad memories of Resident Evil 6.
Oh.
So I completely skipped over 7.
Fair.
And didn't give it the time of day. But now that I've played Village, I do, and like I said, I know 7's a good game, just didn't do it. I kind of want to go back and boot up 7.
Yeah, that's like it's been the one game in the series that's actually maybe interested to play it. All the other games in it, I just was never really a fan of that kind of over-the-shoulder survival horror style thing, whereas this one, it's like, oh, it's actually kind of like up close and personal. It's actually kind of freaky. Despite the fact that, I've seen plenty of memes about it, and I've seen playthroughs of the first of 7 as well. That just like at a certain point, the amount of damage that this poor bastard goes through, it's just like Jesus Christ. And I also did just find endless amount of entertainment from. They recently, I think, released official art or like the official rendering of like the main character's face, which hadn't been shown up until now. And how it's just looks like the most normal looking dude in the world. And it's like, this is somehow even funnier. And it's like, it's not some stoic badass. It's some Griffin McElroy looking motherfucker who's just like getting bits of himself sawn off. It's so funny.
I mean, he is just a, sort of a normal guy that gets into all this, that makes it all the more ridiculous. And also, more interesting because you're not pulled into the world of all of these, like, Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Ada, like, all of these different characters that you could play as, and they chose an outsider for 7 and 8, which I think that was a pretty good move, actually.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll find a way to make it convoluted all over again, but still.
Oh, probably, without spoiling, based on how Village turns out, they're going to make a 9, and I have no idea what they're going to do.
Cool.
But I have an inkling where they're going to go, and if I turn out to be right, I'm probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, that's kind of how the formula went. It's like, there's Resident Evil 1, and that was really unique and new. Then 2 and 3 were kind of like weird, and everyone kind of had a lot of mixed things. And then they had a lot of the spin-offs. Then 4, which was like a whole new spin on it, and everybody loves it. Then 5 and 6, which kind of did the same thing all over again. Now here I have 7, which is new and fresh. Then 8, which is kind of like maybe starting to push it a little, and then 9 will come along, and everyone will be like, "Okay, fuck this."
Yeah,
it works in 3s every single time.
I guess it does. Though
other than spin-offs, obviously.
Yeah, and I do think people like Nemesis, the third one, to a degree. I've never played that one.
Mm-hmm.
I played 1, 2, 4, 6. I didn't even play 5, which I know people didn't like too. And then 8. But yeah, I like the direction that it has started heading. I don't want it to necessarily go any further. These games have brought back a lot of what was initially in them that I sort of liked, especially the puzzle style mechanics, which they fell out. That's why I like the Silent Hill series more, because it's more horror and more puzzles.
Hooray!
Give me that.
Yes, this has been Resident Evil cast.
Yes, unintentionally. I might trim that. And then the last thing was a movie. I watched Cool World, and I am so fucking pissed that I watched Cool World.
Wow, that's a rare reaction for you. Like normally, okay, well, you know what? Explain, because I have no idea what the fuck this is.
So Cool World, basically, it came out in like 91 or 92, but it was essentially like, okay, so we want to do Roger Rabbit, but let's make it violent and sexy. Let's make it gritty and get a little something for Daddy in there too.
So like a lot of those like Newgrounds animations.
Yeah, but I would wager that most any cartoon you find on Newgrounds has better plot.
Fair.
And so Cool World is a Ralph Bakshi film. In fact, I think it was Bakshi's last feature film, for anyone out there not familiar with Bakshi. Fritz the Cat, Wizards, Fire and Ice, all those treats. And a thing about a lot of Bakshi stuff is I like how he draws characters, but I hate the animation in almost every movie. Occasionally there will be something pretty fluid and good, but most of the time it's characters bouncing around and screaming for no good reason, almost like an idle animation in a video game. People will be having a conversation in this film specifically because it's supposed to be live action animation hybrid. But there will be a scene where the main character is talking to this animated woman, this sexy dame, as they say, and just literally in the middle of their conversation, a screaming wolf head with sunglasses will fly by in the foreground. No one comments on it because they're in the middle of talking to one another. It doesn't come from anywhere. It's just a thing because I think maybe the animators were like, people are going to get bored of all this talking. And that happens all the time. Like, constantly.
Huh. Well then, that's weird. And sounds horrible.
And the story doesn't make any sense. They introduce plot points and then they immediately get rid of them. Everyone is boring and bland. And,
I don't think I've seen you this upset at a movie in a long time.
It's at least fanboys had something going on. They had story happening. And I would rather take hammy actors than fucking Brad Pitt in the lead role, mumbling his way through all of his dialogue.
Wait, it stars Brad fucking Pitt?
Yeah, before he made it big. This has got to be one of his earliest film roles, I think.
What the fuck? Okay. I'd look it up, but I genuinely don't want to.
The woman is voiced by Kim Basinger. Gabriel Byrnes is in it, and then, all of the animated characters are voiced by, real voice talent, like Candy Milo. Charlie Adler is in a major role. I don't remember the last time I heard Charlie Adler, in something, because I think he mostly just voice directs now. Maurice LaMarche is in it, so, at least the voice talent is there. But I don't know. It's a bad movie. I don't like the fact that I watched it.
That's
Ugh.
fair.
Well.
All right, then. That's the rare occasion of a very bad movie that wasn't entertaining. At least for you.
No. Yeah, nothing of value for me. But that's all I have. What do you got? If anything.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. A whole lot of nothing on the movie front. Just been a bit of a busy time, and just couldn't really find more time to continue the Marvel marathon with Hannah. But otherwise, played a couple video games. I've been playing this one game, Remnant from the Ashes. It was a free on PS Plus a while back, so I'm trying to get back into it. It's okay so far. I'm still kind of iffy on Dark Souls games, or or Soulsy games, or whatever the fuck the term is. But I've played a few that I've really liked. One of them, I can't remember the name. It was a side scroller, like roguelike type, where you play this like weird magic dude, like this magic head slime thing on a body. I don't know. It's weird. That one I have a lot of fun with though, and so I'm trying to get into it more. It's just this one has so far been very hard. So, which I know is the point, but like at a certain point, I want to be like, I want to feel somewhat accomplished. But it's like it's a very bleak world, not a lot of things going on in it so far. But then I'm only like in the first area, but that's still taken me like a few hours to do. So it might just be me not being good at it. So we will see how that goes.
Always a possibility. Maybe I should. I know I own it, because of the PS Plus thing, but I never touched it because I was worried about the Soulsy thing. I don't think even the actual Dark Souls games. I don't think I've played a single Souls game that I've really enjoyed. Sans, excluding what is it called? Salt and Sanctuary, which, like what you said, was like another 2D take on a Dark Souls game that I played in college with mutual friends, and I had a lot of fun with that. But
I say he's playing it all the dang time.
It's a fun game. We played through the whole game like 3 or 4 times because it has co-op.
Yeah.
More so than like a mainline Souls game does.
Yeah. So does Remnant, which has actually been kind of nice. It's also got guns and everything, so it's like, oh yeah, cool. It's like a modern kind of version of it. So it's definitely got more flexibility to it than other Souls games. So I've enjoyed it more than I think I would have enjoyed it, like Dark Souls or Bloodborne or what have you. But I'm still kind of getting there. So I don't anticipate I will play it for too much longer if it keeps up at this pace.
Okay, I see.
Beyond that, I bought the new Subnautica game. That's been okay. I didn't play the first one just because it looked really janky, but this one I've been enjoying well enough, and if I enjoy it enough, I might go back to buy the original. But otherwise, it's just kind of like, okay, what the fuck do I do? It's like, well, I go down, I hang out in the really cool underwater bit for like 10 seconds, then I go back up to the really boring bit and freeze my ass off and get eaten by sharks along the way. So it's like, all right, this is a bit much. Been playing a lot of hard games, as it turns out.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, I didn't intend that, but at the same time, I think I just wasn't getting a lot of challenge lately, so I'm just trying some other things.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't always want to just plow through.
Yeah, and even the games where you can change the difficulty on, even those aren't really that fun. It just means that the enemies kill you faster, and it's just more frustrating. I like the games where it's the challenge is built around is actually a core part of the gameplay, rather than it's just now it's the same experience, but now it's less fair.
Right. I mean, that's pretty much what it is, right? Is difficulty sliders in games or options in games rarely have anything to actually affect the AI itself, if there is any. It's mostly just enemies have more health and or you do less damage. And that is the difficulty. So.
But yeah, that is the extent of it. Didn't really have time to watch anything else. Or anything at all, really.
I see. Sort of a slow week, it sounds like.
Yeah, at least on the movie front. My entire June is going to be very busy. I'm going to be...
Yes, I have heard.
Yeah, I'm going to be moving out of this apartment here soon, so just getting another place in the city. Mostly because this one sucks and the lease is running out and I really don't want to live here for another year.
It's best of luck on that journey.
I will try. I think that about wraps me and my throat.
Well, you're going to get to rest your throat for a little bit because it's time to delve into the movies that we're discussing this week.
Or shall we say movie plus series, sort of, like in that vein of the 90s?
Kind of, yeah.
I never understood that. It's just like, oh, this is a series, but it's still it's shorter than a feature-length film.
Sometimes we get mini-series like they did with It in the 90s. It's like, tune in next week for the conclusion. Or it'll be a TV movie, like an event. The ABC television movie of the week.
In this case, I've forgotten the name already. It's a confusing name. You say it.
Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
That's it.
First up, I'll be going through the synopsis for the 1962 Whatever Happened to Baby Jane with director Robert Aldrich attached. In 1917, Baby Jane Hudson is a spoiled and capricious child actress who performs in vaudeville theaters across the country with her father, who acts as her manager and accompanies her on stage on the piano. Her success is such that a line of porcelain dolls is made in her image. Meanwhile, her shy older sister Blanche lives in her shadow and is treated with contempt by the haughty Jane. As the sisters pass adolescence, their situations undergo a reversal. Jane's style of performing falls out of fashion and her career declines as she descends into alcoholism, while Blanche becomes an acclaimed Hollywood actress. Mindful of a promise made to their mother, Blanche attempts to maintain a semblance of a career for Jane, going as far as to impose on producers to guarantee a number of acting roles for her. One evening in 1935, Blanche's career is cut short when she is paralyzed from the waist down in a mysterious car accident that is unofficially blamed on Jane, who is found 3 days later in a drunken stupor. Now, in 1962, Blanche, played by Joan Crawford, and Jane, played by Bette Davis, are living together in a mansion purchased with Blanche's movie earnings. Blanche's mobility is limited by a wheelchair and a lack of an elevator to her upstairs bedroom. Jane, psychotic and resentful of Blanche's success, regularly mistreats Blanche and prepares to revive her old act with hired pianist Edwin Flagg, played by Victor Buono. When Blanche informs Jane she intends to sell the house, Jane rightly suspects Blanche will commit her to a psychiatric hospital once the house is sold. She removes the telephone from Blanche's bedroom, cutting her off from the outside world. During Jane's absence, Blanche desperately drags herself down the stairs and calls her doctor for help. Jane returns later to find Blanche on the phone and beats her unconscious before mimicking Blanche's voice to dismiss the doctor. After tying Blanche to her bed and locking her in her room, Jane abruptly fires their cleaning maid, Elvira, played by Maidie Norman, when she comes to the house. While Jane is away, the suspicious Elvira sneaks into the house and attempts to access Blanche's room. Concerned by the lack of a response, Elvira tries to break open the door with a hammer. Jane returns home and reluctantly gives Elvira the key after an argument, but as soon as Elvira enters Blanche's room, Jane takes the hammer and kills Elvira. A few days later, the police call to tell Jane that Elvira's cousin has reported her missing. Jane panics and prepares to leave, taking Blanche with her. Before they can leave, an inebriated Edwin is escorted to the house by police. After talking with Jane for a short period of time, he hears a noise upstairs and shortly discovers Blanche bound to her bed. Edwin flees and notifies the authorities. Jane, in a fit of infantile regression, takes Blanche to a beach where she sang as a child, attracting the attention of nearby beachgoers. Blanche, lying starved, dehydrated, and near death on a blanket, then proceeds to tell the real story of the car accident to relieve Jane of guilt. She says that she is a paraplegic through her own fault, because on the night of the accident, Blanche tried to run Jane over because she was angry at Jane for mocking her at a party earlier that night. Blanche's spine broke when her car struck the iron gates outside of their mansion, and she dragged herself in front of the car's hood to stage the accident and frame Jane. Blanche took advantage of Jane's shock and subsequent bender, removing the real dynamics of the accident from her mind, and subjected Jane to a life of guilt, loneliness, and servitude. After Jane steals ice cream for herself and Blanche from a nearby kiosk, she is recognized by two police officers who ask her to lead them to Blanche. Jane dodges the officers' inquiry and dances before a crowd of bemused onlookers, while the officers find Blanche and rush to confirm her condition. Okay, and now for Whatever Happened to Baby Jane 1991, directed by David Green. So, in similar fashion to many episodes we've covered, or many movies we've covered this year, the remake really does not stray too far from the original source material and therefore the 1962 movie. Some differences are the cleaning woman, and the pianist, are the pianist portrayed by Victor Bono, are replaced by a physical therapist by the name of Dominic, and a con artist, a more explicit con artist, named Billy Korn, respectively. The con man, Billy Korn, has his own side plot, sort of involving attempting to get money from the Hudsons to pay off his debts, which leads to attempting to perform alongside Jane in a drag review as a part of her attempted comeback. But aside from that, the plots are pretty identical. Now I'll go through the cast really quickly. In the role of Blanche Hudson, we have Vanessa Redgrave. Jane Hudson is played by her sister Lynn Redgrave. We have Amy Steele as Connie Trotter, John Scott Claw as Frank, Johnny Glover as Billy Korn, and Bruce A. Young as Dominic. And that's the end of that chapter, as they say.
Very neatly small cast for once.
Yes. I have a feeling that they didn't allow, since it's a TV movie, perhaps a lot of the extras maybe aren't accounted for.
Probably. One of those things where it's just like, oh, we just need like this crowd. We're not going to fucking get a bunch of people to write down their names.
Yeah.
Oh, the 90s.
Guys, this is going on CBS. Or BBC. Okay. So, I will quickly launch into Full Circle here. We have 4 this time around, all of them for the 62 version. We don't have anything for the 91 film. Firstly is James C. Plays a police officer, one of many police officers in the 62 film, and is a government official in 1951's The Day the Earth Stood Still. So, a couple of side roles there.
I see he moved up in his career.
It's good. He got promoted. I'm happy for him.
Hooray.
Next we have Maxine Cooper, who is the bank teller in the 62 film, and she was the sick woman on the plane in 1957's 0 Hour.
Aren't there several?
She's the initial sick woman.
Okay, gotcha. I was wondering, like, I think that's kind of the plot of most of the film. Is that a lot of sick. Like, thank you, 0 Hour, and for your service, but could you maybe be more specific?
Yeah, I believe she the one that actually gets dialogue at the beginning.
Gotcha.
Or near the beginning of that whole scene. Next we have Michael Fox, who played a TV commercial man in 62's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The only thing I can think of for that is the man who is trying to sell dog food at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, I think that might be it.
Yeah, and he also played Helga's father in 1974's Young Frankenstein.
Cool. weirdly specific.
And lastly, none of these are really big. But lastly, we have Murray Alper, who was uncredited as the projectionist seen near the beginning of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. He's also uncredited as the deputy in 1960's Ocean's 11. And he is a gym attendant, again, uncredited, in 1963's The Nutty Professor. So the early 60s, this guy got around. He was sneaking on sets.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like he got around and didn't tell anybody.
We had to find out later.
He just kind of showed up and people just are like, okay, you seem like you know what you're doing.
This is just a real projectionist.
Yeah.
Hey kid, you want to be in the movies?
It's amazing how many things you can get into with a can-do attitude. Nowadays you need like a high-vis vest at the very least.
Yeah, you need to look the part.
Yeah.
And you gotta know some people.
But man, I gotta tell you, high-vis vest, a hard hat, and a clipboard, you can get in anywhere.
You know what? I believe it. I think with a good enough costume, you can Bugs Bunny your way into any situation.
Oh, but dude, it doesn't even need to be a good costume. As someone whose job was wearing a high-vis vest and holding a clipboard for a lot of the time, no one looked at me twice.
We were Mr. Murray Alper, who was the last individual on the Full Circle segment.
Yes, what did he do?
Who knows?
Yeah, okay.
All right, so I'm gonna take some drinks here.
Go right ahead. I'll go ahead and continue in with my, voice in and out. Once again, I apologize.
All right.
I think like right off the bat with this one, I really did not know what the hell I was expecting going into this one, but it was not this. Like you've suggested, many movies to me before that I'm just like, I have never once heard of that and haven't heard of most of the people who are in it. But this one especially, for some reason, I don't know what I was expecting going into it, but thriller was not on the list. I was thinking like maybe like, I don't know, like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Like by that title, I was like, oh, maybe it's like a cop drama, like someone gets kidnapped, or it's like someone gets like, or some girl named Jane gets like flung into some like, far-flung globe-trotting adventure on accident or some bullshit like that. Some sort of like, early like
mystery.
Disney, like, Swiss Family Robinson kind of like deal of just like going off on this mystery whole deal, or like Adventures of Tintin or something. But then, and like I decided to do the 91 version first. Just because like I try to mix it up a little.
I did too, but just because I've seen the 62 one before.
Yeah. And, like, as it was being set up, with it just being like, oh, the little house on the prairie kind of set up deal and everything, and, like, as it was going along, I kind of thought that's where it was going to be going, of, like, oh, there's going to be some, like, hijinks of the, Blanche is going to, like, try to replace Jane in some kind of deal, or, like, there's going to be some mix-up, like, one character gets, like, kidnapped by some crazy fan, or, like, someone just holding a ransom. It's going to be this whole thing of, like, oh, they're reconciling their relationship, all this sort of stuff. And then it immediately like cuts from the beach to them as old women, not really slumming it, but definitely like having done a lot of stuff off screen, and also like watching a scene of Blanche's character definitely having a sex scene, and it's just like, what the fuck? What's going on? I'm so confused. And it just kind of kept going back and forth from there. That was you do not pick boring films, dude. I will tell you that. You do not pick boring films.
Oh, that's good at least. Devil and Daniel Webster.
Yeah, well, that aside. But at least the remake was exciting-ish.
That's true. It was strange.
I wasn't bored, that was for sure.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm glad you sort of at least, I mean, whether you liked it or disliked it, I'm glad that at the very least it was interesting and you didn't really know what was going on beforehand. Even before I originally saw the 62 version, I sort of knew what it was about just because I was aware of the behind-the-scenes drama between Joan Crawford and Bette Davis, which I'll talk about a bit later as we get more into that stuff.
Because obviously I don't know that much, or I should say I don't know anything about that because I've hadn't even heard of this movie before. So
right. But yeah, I'm glad it was interesting.
Yeah. I'm still deciding whether I like these movies or not. I'm honestly still kind of like trying to parse through them because, like, you know, the '91 version, obviously, you know, we've seen like we've had stuff on the show before similar to that, like the It TV series, like that kind of '90s thriller / horror series, like that kind of they have a very similar feel to them, like very fuzzy, but also like very like not quite hammy, but like just genuine enough that it seems a little silly in certain scenes, but still very entertaining. And then the '62 one where it feels like everyone's fucking crazy. It's just like it was hard. It's weird watching movies that, especially in like the earlier films like 1960s and before, where one of the characters is purportedly meant to be crazy, and then comparing them alongside to a lot of the people also on screen who aren't crazy but are very different from modern folks, so they also seem just like a different kind of crazy. Because normally we watch these movies and everyone's kind of the same level of like sanity, for lack of a better term, and like you kind of get pulled into the believability of it all. And just like, okay, it's just like, it's outdated dialogue, it's outdated like styles of acting, it's whatever. But once you have it like on display where like there's someone on screen who's actually supposed to be insane, and then comparing everyone else to it, it's like, wow, fucking no one in this movie's normal.
I do especially feel that with Victor Buono's character, who steals the movie for me. He is the pianist, Edwin Flagg.
Yes. Oh my god.
He is like the best character in the movie, you know, and his relationship with his mother, played by Marjorie Bennett, who I also adore. I love everything about all of that.
Oh yeah, like it's like me saying all that. It's like, it's not for me to say that, you know, I think they were necessarily bad or anything. It's just it was so absurd watching through it. I was like, it was both hard to watch and hard to look away. Because it's just, I couldn't, once again, like I said, I can't decide if I like it or not. It's just like, I'm so confused.
Well,
there's just so much going on at all times. Like, the '91 at least, like, condenses it a bit. There's some slow moments and some moments that are just hard to watch, but I guess that's kind of the point. Just like with Jane just being absolutely off her rocker. Which, like, it I kind of had this weird feeling at a certain point of watching it of just like, man, I watched these old women talking to each other so much that I'm starting to feel like I can smell their house. Like, you know that like old person's house smell?
I do.
I'm like, yeah, no, I can smell that.
I mean, especially the setting in the '91 version, I will say, it really does, it paints quite a picture.
Oh yeah, it's
gross.
The set dressing and everything for it. And I think that just, again, might be kind of something with those 90s films, which, like, and maybe that just speaks to the two of us, since we are, you know, children, very, very literally children of the 90s. And so, like, maybe we just have a deeper relationship with that, because, like, I've been in those houses before. Like, they got it dead fucking on. Like, there was really no part of this that felt unbelievable, really. I mean, there were parts that were like absurd and like crazy, but they didn't feel like it was unbelievable, which I think was the biggest strength of the '91 version. Is just that it truly did feel like, yeah, no, this shit's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. I guess because there are aspects of the domain, I guess, of the '62 film that are sort of like the kitchen kind of always looks like it's in disarray, and I think that's because that's where Jane spends most of her time, is smoking and reading mail in the kitchen. But maybe, you know, it's a little less cluttered because, you know, they had a cleaning lady for quite a long time that they could hire. They didn't have a cleaning lady in the '91 version. They just had that the physical therapist guy that would come over.
Yep. At least if they had a cleaning lady, it wasn't shown.
Yeah, and she should probably be fired.
Yeah, no,
definitely. A very bad job.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, then again, would you want to spend an extended period of time in that house?
No, I would not. Not in either of them, because Jane is portrayed very similarly, yet very differently in both of these both of these pictures, and part of that is due to the time frame, I guess, because the 62 version, like was said in the synopsis, Jane was a star on vaudeville on the stage, before movies were really a thing.
Yeah,
and so a lot of her wardrobe sort of calls back to that, even later on in the movie, in her elder years. It sort of calls back to that. And it explains why she couldn't really get into the picture game, I guess. A lot of vaudeville stars had trouble transitioning to the original films and then the talkies that came after that.
Yeah.
And she's sort of presented as this... She's depressed to a point where it doesn't look like... it doesn't look like she's ever bathed. She's very dirty. Anytime her face gets slightly dirty, she just puts more makeup on it, which her face literally is caked in makeup. Which I think is the point. And then the 91 version, she also has that dirty, grimy feeling, but she kind of has a hippie vibe to her too, I think.
I was thinking more like sort of strung out mom from the Ozarks.
That sounds like something you can relate to more than me, I guess.
I've driven through areas where I'd see people hanging out where I'm like, man, you have your own entire story going on, and I want nothing to do with it.
So yeah,
it's just like, yeah, it's like I know that I can have very weirdly specific, visceral comparisons to certain characters, and when Jane showed back up on screen and like when she was older, I saw that and I was like, I've seen this exact person before.
I passed through shanty town.
Yeah, not even necessarily shanty towns, just towns that just like aren't great. Oh man. Like
yeah, no, it's not good. But so to one of your earlier points, I guess, as well, is that the 91 film feels a bit more, not as abstract, a bit more believable, I guess, and perhaps that's due to the setting and the time periods, as we discussed.
Yeah.
But also, it feels like a thriller movie, sort of, this murder thriller about these sisters who have this seething hatred and they try to bottle it up, but, oftentimes they just let it loose. But the 62 film doesn't really feel real a lot of the time. It feels like a nightmare that's just happening.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it. I didn't really think of it that way. It feels like, especially with, like you said, with Jane's character of, having the makeup on all the time, it really did feel like everything was going on in this very dreamlike state. Which, like, you kind of get that in the 91 version as well. Like, that's just a kind of that's a recursive issue with, like, 90s series like this, where it's like everything has that kind of weird fuzzy feel where it feels like everything's kind of happening just on the edge of dreams, which is the title for my softcore album.
Okay.
Yeah, there really was that whole feeling of just kind of disconnect going throughout the 60s version. And it was hard to kind of get past that. I was like, I really want to enjoy this, but I genuinely have this like internal strife trying to get through it. It's like, what's going on? I'm not having a good time.
And see, that's where we differ, because I really like that sort of nightmarish feeling of never really knowing what's going on.
Oh yeah, no, I was watching through it. It's like, God, no wonder Jake likes this. It's like, I know that's your deal. And like I say that, I don't mean necessarily to say that I hated it. It's just like, it definitely gets its mood and feeling down very well. It's just like, that mood and feeling is discomfort and fear. And that still is difficult to continue to watch for me, especially. Like, I get secondhand embarrassment hard enough. Like, there are movie scenes I can't watch because they're too, like, cringy for me. But this was like the exact opposite, where it's like, oh, well, not the exact opposite, but just in a different direction, where it's like, oh my God, what's going on?
There are several points in this movie, and Robert Aldrich, this is something else I'll get into later during the suggestion segment, but he's a competent director. that does a lot of stuff, and not necessarily stuff like this. Which, the film is at least comprehensible to a degree. It has a plot. It's just, there are specific scenes in this movie, just isolated scenes, that I don't think would feel out of place in a David Lynch film. Like Blue Velvet or Mulholland Drive or something. Especially Mulholland Drive, since that's all about Hollywood. Like, obviously...
I can kind of see that.
Obviously, the big horror scene near the beginning, where Jane is sort of performing her act to herself, and then she looks in the mirror and sort of screams and covers her face, because, she realizes in an instant, it's like, oh, it's just all gone. I'm old and withered and everything is gone.
Yeah.
And then the later, another later scene where she is essentially torturing Blanche with her meals. And she gives her dinner, and just casually, while she's walking out of the room, she's like, there are rats in the cellar. And so it's just like a slow of like Blanche trying to debate in her head whether she's going to open up the dish, while Jane waits in the hall to hear what she's going to do. Just like things like that.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah, there's some very Lynchian vibes. Oh, yeah. Even just kind of thinking about that back again, it's just like, because I watched this relatively late at night, and which was a mistake. And I just, like, once I got done with it, I guess that was just kind of the feeling I was trying to parse. It's like, what has this movie made me feel? And the answer is whatever the hell David Lynch movies make me feel. Ugh.
Oh.
Even just like you said, the comments of, oh, there's rats in the cellars. It's like, this is turning into a horror movie. It feels like it feels like I genuinely thought, like, when I heard that, like, that movie, like, even after having seen the 91 version, that there was going to be some sort of horrible death involving rats, like way more horrible than anything else in the movie. And I was like, kind of convinced that was going to happen, and I was kind of dreading it. I was genuinely like, oh my god, please don't let there be some sort of, like, because I kind of got to a certain point, like, when they, with how weird everything had been, I was starting to think, is this like some really avant-garde / really underknown film that, like, got away with doing a whole bunch of really crazy shit because so few people knew about it? Because I was genuinely concerned. It's like, is there just gonna be like a rat murder scene?
Oh,
because, like, that's gonna suck.
I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't show you like a snuff film or something. Don't worry.
Okay, cool. Like, I don't have a particular problem with rats or anything. Like, they're gross, obviously, but it's just even just the idea of just like that just being a thing in a 1960s movie. Because I knew if they did that, they were gonna do it really well, and I knew that I was not gonna be okay with it.
Oh, yeah, that's something to talk about, too, is that this was a really big film. Sort of deemed as a saving grace for Warner Brothers, because television was sort of killing Warner Brothers Studios at the time. So this movie sort of comes along, and it bills itself as... These two women, it's sort of a known secret that these two huge actresses fucking despise each other. So they're going to be the stars. And I think it was something else I'll get into later. I think it was Joan Crawford's idea to get Bette Davis, because she knew that it would be good chemistry since they both hated each other.
Wow. I mean, I will say that, like, that I do think that, the biggest saving grace for the 60s version is, I can see that. I can see that in the relationship between these two characters. It's just like the pure vitriol that can just be felt from these two people. At a more subtle level than in some other movies, but still.
So I actually typed up a small list of things that I know about from the making of this movie. One of them I actually found in the trivia section. The others I knew about beforehand. And I'll just sort of go through them real quick. So, one of the first days on set, Joan Crawford started sending gifts and notes to the crew to sort of win their affection. So Bette Davis sent her a note telling her to get off of the crap. Bette Davis had a Coca-Cola machine installed on the set. She deliberately did this to provoke Joan Crawford because she was the widow of Pepsi chairman Alfred Steele.
What the fuck?
Joan demanded a body double for scenes where Jane attacked Blanche because she claimed that she needed stitches after Bette Davis kicked her in the head. And after that incident, Joan Crawford allegedly put weights in her pockets so that Bette Davis had a harder time dragging her around.
Okay, what the hell?
And shit like this was happening constantly.
What the fuck? That's the greatest shit I've ever heard. You don't hear about that sort of thing with, like, okay, you hear about that sort of thing with a lot of older movies, but, like, I just didn't, I don't know why I didn't expect that, but, like, at the same time, who would fucking expect that? Wow. Why did they hate each other?
It was like a catty starlet thing, I think, because they were both huge stars in their own right, and it was sort of like, Bette Davis was a huge star, and then Joan Crawford came in and was a bigger star, and Bette Davis resented her for it. And there's an early incident, I believe, where Joan Crawford offered Bette Davis a movie to star in together, where Joan would play the lead role of this sort of heroine girl, and Bette Davis would play a mean old hag, which Bette Davis was upset with.
I can see that, yeah.
And so they just sort of went back and forth, complaining about one another, and just, they really... Years after this, Joan Crawford would go on interviews and sort of backhandedly compliment, like, Bette Davis. You know, like, oh, she was great, I only ever wanted her respect, you know. She resented me because I was bigger than her. Like that, like Jerry Lewis shit, where it's like, I'm complimenting you, but I'm complimenting myself more. Whereas Bette Davis was just full of vitriol, like, that bitch. Like, I think the only person she hated more than Joan Crawford was Faye Dunaway. And interviews with Bette Davis are a treat to watch, I'll just say that.
There's some respect to be had there.
But that's sort of all I'll go into on that, not to completely gush about it, because I also want to talk about 91 version and the relationships had there. I just sort of bring all that up because, like you were saying, I think that really shows, and as Joan sort of expected, it plays really well into the character dynamic, and it comes through on the screen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they fucking got it. Like, Jesus Christ.
And the 91 film, it doesn't necessarily have that. I do appreciate the relationship because I think they sort of knew what they were doing there too, in casting, you know, these two sort of famous, more so stage actresses, but they had been in films and on TV, of the Redgrave sisters. And you can feel their closeness, definitely. I just don't feel the same sort of hatred there.
I mean, like, I'm not surprised.
well, yeah, of course. Yeah.
It was definitely... I definitely like the subtler versions of it. Like, I definitely think their relationship as sisters was able to kind of play off itself a lot more naturally, which, like, I guess is kind of the point. But, you know, compare that to the 60s one where they really do just, like, to their cores hate each other. And it's fun and insane and scary, but it's also like it goes into it again. It just goes into the kind of nightmare feeling more than anything.
Yeah, no, I get that. The interesting thing, something I actually I liked, maybe I liked it more in 62 because it was subtler in 62, which is a bizarre thing for me to say.
Oh, yeah.
But it's interesting where they went with the Blanche character in 91, because she herself seems a lot more hateful. Like, she straight lashes out at Jane explicitly multiple times. The first one that comes to mind is when Jane is giving her a haircut, and she's just like, you ruined it. You ruined it. You ruined everything. And having already seen the 62 version, I was like, whoa, that's a weird thing for Blanche to just say, especially since they're sort of getting along in this scene.
Yeah.
And that happens a couple of times, where it's like, oh, it's sort of poking through earlier that, Jane is not solely the antagonist here, whereas in the 62 one, that's part of the mystery. It's played up a bit that, you sort of go into it like Jane is the worst person in the film. It's like, well, Blanche has her dark side too.
Right.
But 91 doesn't really play around with that too much. It's like, no, neither of these women are great.
Right. Yeah, I think, like, maybe that was kind of an attempt at them trying to, like, foreshadow the twist that comes up, like, with it being Blanche's fault in the first place. But it doesn't come off necessarily that well, like you said. But then again, I don't know if necessarily they wanted either of these characters to necessarily be likable. Because, like, there's also those moments where it's like, I think you're meant to feel sorry for Jane in the 91 version. Well, a lot more than the 60s version. That I do think actually kind of helps out with her character a bit. It's like, if it's just like all weird all the time, there's no real sense of humanity. But like seeing her kind of break the surface in those few moments of kind of having those, sweeter moments where she kind of realizes the kind of gravity of her life at this point, and then seeing it get dragged right the fuck away, in the most absurd of fashions. I still cannot believe it was a drag show that that brought it all crumbling.
That took me, but I was not expecting that. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like I guess I kind of saw that they were kind of going there. Like I figured, yeah, it's like, oh, there's gonna be this big talent show. There's gonna be something weird and quirky about it that makes her kind of have this breakdown. I didn't think it was gonna be A, that quirky, and B, that sad of a breakdown. Because like there's a very weird disconnect between, oh, here we are at this drag show, oh dang it, I was gonna say like the Birdcage, I think it's called. I don't know. It's a movie with
Robin Williams and Nathan Lane.
Yes, it's like
yeah,
it's like a la It's like Birdcage, but like a la Shawshank Redemption, where it's like,
God.
It's this quirky like drag show and everything, but then it's this person going through this deep fucking emotional physical journey. Like, what the hell?
It was intense, and you know what? It's fucking Billy's fault because he didn't tell her. She was probably still under the assumption that like her sister's voice would be coming from the shadows because that's what he pitches to her, and he doesn't inform her of any changes. So she probably just. I think that's the point, is she thinks maybe she's being made fun of or that it's a joke or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe, yeah.
Which, like, I wasn't sure what to think of Billy's character throughout the whole thing. Like, I kind of thought that, like, he was just getting her for a rise and was just getting money out of her. And, like, this whole conclusion of what was going on here, I still was confused of, like, so is he, like, meant to, like, actually like her? Or is he just, like, actually being malicious towards this lady now? I genuinely could not figure that out.
I don't know. I think there's a weird pity that's sort of there, but ultimately, he's being harassed by these two, Hans and Franz, who suspiciously keep saying they're underage, which I was like, okay.
Yeah,
but he
weird.
Keeps getting harassed by these guys, so he's a little more concerned about the money, which is why the big confrontation at the end before she stabs him, which I guess I didn't mention that in the synopsis. That is a big change, is that he's sort of the stand-in for Victor Buono's pianist character, but the difference is that he dies.
Oh yeah, no, she straight ganks him.
With a trophy with like an actual sharp sword on it that she won when she was a child?
Yeah, like that was another thing. That fucking trophy went in with no resistance. Like that was an actual, honest to God, sword on the top of that thing.
I was just floored because she's sitting in the projection area, the screening room in her house, talking to one of the porcelain dolls, and she's like, I won this when I was a child, the Sword of Excellence trophy, or whatever it's called, and I was like, the what?
Yeah, I realized that, and I was like, God, that's the worst Chekhov's gun moment of all time. Like, fucking, really? You did it with a trophy? You could have just, like, had a fucking, like, trophy that she broke, and then, like, stabbed someone with it out of anger, rather than, like, this pseudo-accident thing.
I think that would make more sense.
Yeah, Because, like, otherwise that is just there to be like, it's a trophy with a sword. Wouldn't it be funny if someone got stabbed with it? It's
or
like...
even if you're going to have a Chekhov's gun, that's way too late in the movie. That's literally, she introduces that trophy 3 minutes before she uses it.
Yeah. Like, I figured, I really did figure there was going to be some kind of moment, like, it would actually show Blanche's rise to stardom and Jane's descent into, like, anonymity. And, like, I figured, that would have been a good time to, like, show that, of her receiving an award and kind of showing, conversely, like, what's happening with Blanche and all this other shit. But no, it's just kind of like young, then old, and all these implied things about their past. And I'm like, could have been a lot of moments of good character and like plot development there, but no, it's just kind of just there.
They focus more on the actual the sort of, they focus more on that stuff, between childhood and them being old women in the 62 version.
Yeah.
They still don't do it a lot. There's like 5 minutes total, but it's actually, if you include the prolonged child segment at the beginning, it's probably like 15 minutes.
Yeah. God, that lasted long.
Yeah, it's still, it's way more than the 91 version gives it. The 91 version doesn't even give us like a mysterious vision of the crash that happened. They just sort of allude to it.
Yeah. Which, like, I think I actually kind of like that better. Because, like, the whole thing of, like, Blanche, like, positioning herself with the car and everything, I was like, all right. It's like, what the fuck? But yeah,
I do know what you mean. But yeah, the 62 one did have scenes of our favorite person, projectionist Murray Alper,
hooray,
and then two studio executives sort of watching one of the films, and they see Bette Davis come in, which I think that's a film. I think that's a clip taken from an earlier Bette Davis film, actually.
Oh,
but
cool.
Her doing like a southern accent, and then them being like, yeah, she has a southern accent like I have a southern accent, and sort of like communicating about it. So at least you get a feel for what's sort of happening there. Like, oh, Blanche has it in her contract that Jane has to be in all these movies. Which again is like nice guy Jane, or nice girl Jane move.
Wait, is it Jane or Blanche?
Blanche, I meant Blanche.
Yeah, God, this is getting confusing. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. God, these are some weird movies. Like I really, like, I can dance around it as much as I can. These are some weird fucking movies. Like, the plot of it, on its surface, is pretty interesting. But God, doing it in practice is like, I really am just watching these two old women committing microaggressions until they start committing macroaggressions. It's just
that's
like
the slow boil.
Yeah, like it's those ads. It's like those weird ads you see on like random channels talking about like the abuse of the elderly and that sort of thing. Where it's like, which is a very real, like, terrifying and terrible thing. But just seeing like 2 whole films of it, I'm like, what? Kind of like. I don't necessarily feel bad, like, having watched this, but I kind of feel bad on, like, a moral level. Like, just, like, having consumed and at times enjoyed the fact of these 2 women absolutely losing it, one more than the other, and then just kind of, like, it pittering off in the end of, like, oh, no, they're still going to have shitty lives, I'm sure. Which, like, can I just say, both these endings suck. Like, I'm a purist when it comes to, like, okay, an ending should be at least, unless it's, like, really done well, an ending should have some amount of closure. Like, what the fuck was going on with these, though?
I guess I kind of like the 62 version's ending more because it kind of reflects the title of, like, whatever happened to Baby Jane's, like, we still don't know what happened to her.
Yeah,
I get that can be frustrating, but at least it's, like, the title, whereas in the 91 version, she tries to commit suicide, I guess, by running into the ocean, but then the cops get her. So it's not the best closure because you aren't really sure if Blanche is alive, but you know that Jane is going to jail.
Yeah. And, like, I think they should have just, like, let it go and have her walk off into the ocean. Because that did kind of, like, undercut that whole moment of just, like, oh, the cop ran off and just picked her up. Because I was thinking, like, oh, God, this is, like, they're, like, truly wrapping it all up. Jane is kind of had this moment of cognizance and have realized all the horrible things she's done, and then it brings her back. I'm like, oh, never mind. Nope, she's still just crazy. It's like,
you know what? I actually, you're right. I would have really liked that if she just walked into the ocean and eventually, like, her head goes beneath the waves, and then that's the end of the movie. I would have liked that even better than the '62 version.
yeah, because then it's like there's actually some poignance and some drama to the end of it. It's like there's actually some closure to like all the terrible things that have happened. But it's just like with her just like walking off with the cop and calling her Papa, and I'm like, okay, so now we're just kind of continuing to watch this poor old woman lose her shit, and then it's just going to end with a still on her face, like that's meant to be poignant or something. It's like, no, this woman needs help. And, I mean, also needs to go to prison, but still. Even, like, an implied version of it, like, it has that, like, freeze frame on her face at the end and it kind of, like, fades into blue. They should have just done that with her walking into the ocean. It should have just, like, shown her most of the way through and then freeze framed and then faded off. It's like, okay, cool. Then that's left still sort of ambiguous, at the very least. But also it, like, heavily implies, yeah, no, she just dies. It's like...
Yeah. Oh, that's something I don't like either. Because you brought it up, the freeze frame thing.
Yeah.
That's just the editing in general. It wasn't as bad as a lot of things in the 90s were, or even the early 2000s, but... Like, when she loses it in the drag club and it starts going slow-mo, that's all I could think of. It's like...
Yeah, it's like that slow-mo, but...
doing this.
I hate that style of slow-mo where it's like they literally just start slowing down the frames.
Exactly. It looks like there's things missing.
Yeah. Or just the camera's fucking up.
Yeah.
Which, like, I know ultimately it was tech limitations, but at a certain point, like, just don't do it. Like,
yeah,
the
point is supposed to be the break. Yeah, the point is supposed to be the breakdown. Like, she's losing it in her mind. Everything's going in slow mo. I get it, but it's one of those editing things that when I see it, it takes me out of it because that's all I can think of. Is that I see that so often.
Yeah.
In movies from that time, not even just that genre, but from that time period.
Yeah, which is like, God, what was it with the '90s and all those styles? Which I say that as if each decade of film doesn't have a bunch of like reused like shit like that. Like modern days, it's like those like ultra close-ups with people like super like trying to emotionally act and whatever. It's like I'm so sick and tired of that shit. Like how often it happens in Marvel movies. I've realized having watched almost all of them now. Of like them just having to have these up close and personal emotional moments. It's so annoying. It's like just piss off.
I wonder what the first film to do the freeze frame, like that sort, not the freeze frame, but the slow sort of thing was that sort of sent everyone on this path. Because like The Matrix came out in '99, and that was like the literal stop time sort of bullet dodge thing, and then we did that for a decade and a half.
Yeah.
So there's always a trendsetter.
I'm guessing it was like some like early romantic comedy, or it was something way earlier, like in the '60s, that someone just like picked back up on. I'm sure, like trendsetter wise, I'm almost certain it was like a romantic comedy, or like a romance movie or something, because like it's like just those dramatic moments of having slow mo,
running towards each other and embracing.
Yeah.
On the beach, maybe.
It's either that or something like fucking Jackal. Not necessarily Jackal. Not necessarily Jackal explicitly, but like something like it.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I've sort of hit all the points that I have here. The last sort of thing I wanted to bring up, I already sort of brought it up near the beginning, but I want to say that both the leads in both films, I think, do a great job, just in different respects.
Yeah.
And I think that, Vanessa and I feel bad now. I can't remember her name. Vanessa and Lynn Redgrave are, not just the stars of the movie, but they're the ones that, my focus is sort of drawn towards. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford do great jobs in the '62 version, but like I said earlier, Victor Buono, I think, is the sort of star of that movie.
Yeah,
his facial acting is fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to kind of debate that. It's like no, man's classic.
When she comes out, Jane comes out in like that modified outfit that she used to wear when she was a child. He's literally smiling and his face just drops.
Oh,
just in real time.
Oh my, yeah, that should have been a comedy. Like, oh my god, you could see the life leave that man's face.
I think every scene with him is sort of a comedy. The relationship with that he has with his mother, whenever he puts on the sort of more esteemed British accent whenever he's trying to do business with Jane. All the drunken stuff when he's playing around in Blanche's wheelchair. He is sort of the comic relief of the movie, I guess.
I'm trying to think of like another character who kind of equated that in the 91 version. But what I'm coming up with currently is like, I just realized, did anything ever come up again with like the neighbors? Like the one lady with that was like apparently designed by a fucking like Mercedes designer, like with her face. My God. It's just like, literally when she first came on screen, it's like, that person's face was designed. What the hell? She looks like a fucking modern like runway model or some shit just without makeup. Like, what the hell? It's almost disconcerting.
I don't think so. There's like a whole thing with this neighbor man and his dog, like take that dog to obedience school or whatever, and that's like a funny little thing.
Yeah.
But the woman, they drastically cut her role to the point that I'm only just now thinking about this, but in the 62 version, there's a scene where Blanche is typing at a typewriter a note that's basically like, call this number to get my doctor, send him over, I need help, don't tell my sister. And then she throws it out the window to the neighbor lady, but then, Jane gets home, Jane has a conversation with the neighbor lady and picks up the note. The scene equivalent to that in the 91 version is she uses a tape recorder to record a message, throws it outside, it gets stuck in a bush, and I think that's it. I don't think anything comes of that.
Jane ends up finding it.
Does she? I don't even remember.
Yeah, like
that.
when she gets back, she finds it in the hedge.
Okay, I missed that completely.
Not much comes of it, I don't think. I can't remember the immediate next scene, though. Like, because, like, of course, also, the neighbor lady is also trimming hedges right next to it. She doesn't see it, though, so I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah. She's also doing a very bad job. Everyone is bad at their job.
Pretty much. Except the physical therapist guy. He was like the one good guy, and he got ganked, and that was sad.
Oh, yeah, he was doing a job. He was sort of, like we stated, he was the stand-in for the cleaning woman, and they both get offed, one by hammer and one by scissors in the back.
Yeah, which, like, ugh. So, I don't know why, just, like, the idea of getting stabbed by scissors is terrifying to me.
No, thank you.
Ugh. So, points for, making me go, ugh, at least in the 91 version. Versus like that happening every 10 minutes in the 60s version.
Congratulations. Also, we don't talk too often about scores, but
yeah,
the soundtrack in the 62 one is interesting. And I didn't recognize it the first time, only the second time that I watched it. But it's that I'm Sending a Letter to Daddy song. Is every single song in the movie just reorchestrated or slowed down or sped up or with different instruments?
Yeah.
I didn't even know until this time watching it, but I was like, oh my god, that is just the entire soundtrack is just different versions of that song.
It's like that one song from the 70s version of Romeo and Juliet. Do you remember that one?
I haven't seen that. Is that... Who did that? Was that Kenneth Branagh that made that? I haven't seen it.
I think so, actually. Because like I know a lot of people. We had to watch it for like English class and shit. And there's just this one like romance, like love song that is like the. I'm trying to think of the term for it. It's not sound bridge. It's like just like the musical key throughout the entire movie. Like every single tune is to the tune of this song, and it's so annoying. I didn't realize that about 62, which I guess kind of plays into it, but
I guess it's not as annoying.
It's not as annoying, no.
Notice it
because like it does it with different instruments and different paces and that sort of thing. Like whereas the Romeo and Juliet one is just like it's just the tune just being played randomly.
Yeah, oh my god, this is a hell of a comparison. It reminds me of Banjo-Kazooie.
Okay, how?
Because that's exactly what Grant Kirkhope did with Banjo-Kazooie. Is every single like every single level you go to, it's just a different version of Teddy Bear Picnic, just with new instruments. Like you're on the beach, there's a marimba. There's like a haunted version of Teddy Bear Picnic with a theremin in Mad Monster Mansion. It's sort of the same thing.
Huh. Every time I learn something new about like Grant Kirkhope and what he does, I'm just like, man, I would love to meet him.
Seems like he'd be a nice meet, yeah.
Yeah. My God.
A fun, rowdy guy to share a brew with.
Oh, good old dude. And whatever the fuck he does now. I hope he just still does good work.
Maybe. I don't know what he's done since Ukulele. And that was like 2018? 2017? Something like that.
And that was a mixed bag, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. So that was banjo because
this has been try not to mention JonTron cast. Damn it.
Did it.
But yeah, no, I can't. Like you said, I can't imagine what else I could talk about either of these movies. They're so. I've never had. It's rare that we have two movies who are so distinct and have so much going on, and yet I have not as much to talk about it as I expected. Like, we've had small ones like Devil and Daniel Webster, and even stuff like Seven Samurai, where we could just find billions of things to talk about. And not even as much it felt like happened in certain cases. I mean, okay, maybe not with Seven Samurai, but just like we've had smaller movies on here that we could talk about for days. And now on here, I'm like, they're both crazy in both movies. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to be slightly reserved in all the things that I say because I do like the 91 version. To an extent, I don't want the podcast to just be me gushing about 1962s for an hour.
Right.
And I've already done that a fair amount, so I've tried to keep it back a little bit, and I've tried to be fair to both.
That's fair.
To a degree.
And I've seemingly lambasted both, because, like, I still don't know if I necessarily like either of these. Like, they're very interesting, and they're very, like, over the top, and it's hard not to like the relationships for both sets of actresses. But it's just at a certain point, I'm like, God, this sucks for these people. Like, I'm a very empathetic guy. At a certain point when I'm watching something and it's just shit's going bad all the time, I just don't know how to feel.
I guess I'll let you sort of parse through your feelings real quick, which you've had quite a lot of time to do it, so yeah, I don't know if you'll get there that soon. But
I've more or less got decisions.
Okay. So I like both of these, the 91 to a much lesser extent, because I enjoy the Redgrave sisters and the unique chemistry that they have in being sisters, and how that sort of Jane Blanche interpersonal relationship plays out as an effect of that. And I like Blanche's character. She's a lot meaner. And she has moments of that shine through, which I find very enjoyable. It's just, I don't like all of the things that surround it. I don't really care for the Billy Corn character or any of the things he brings to the table. And perhaps that is unfair, because he is sort of the, his comparison point is Victor Buono, which it's near impossible to compare the two.
Right.
So I think it's a decent thriller, especially for a TV movie. With such great actresses in the lead roles. It's a pretty good thriller, but I'm a much bigger fan of horror, and like we brought up with all the nightmare and potential David Lynchian moments, I think that 62 is a thriller, but it's much more of a horror film, and even though everyone seems batshit insane in the movie, excluding the cleaning woman, perhaps,
yeah,
I much more enjoy that film. I think pretty much all of the characters, and shout out to the sleeper hit character of Delia Flagg, played by Marjorie Bennett, Edwin Flagg's mother, who is enjoyable, and regardless of how many times her son is being mean to her and just shooting her down because he's fed up with her shit, she is always smiling and bubbly, and it's great.
Yeah, we should all strive to be that woman, I guess. Maybe a better mom, but
That is a running theme. If you think about it, not to get sidetracked, but if you think about it with this podcast, that is a running theme. Is I always in these films prior to 1970, I always gush about the old mother character.
Yeah,
Scarface, Devil and Daniel Webster, Brewster's Millions. I always love them. They're great.
I feel like I'm slowly delving into your psychological profile.
Perhaps.
As if this whole show weren't a psychological profile for the both of us.
Yeah, you listen to all the episodes. I think there could be a case study done.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sure this is one of the greatest, again, it's a small sidetrack, but this is one of the greatest quotes I've seen online was something to the effect of, if a group of psychiatrists listening to our work is like their equivalent of a sommelier wine tasting where they get to detect each and every single individual mental illness going on at the time. It's like just by the words we say or like the comparisons we make. It's like I saw someone do that. It's like, I think they said it was like you take a piece of artwork from a fetish artist and present it to a group of psychiatrists, and like a wine tasting, they pick apart every single mental illness on display. I saw that, I was like, my life is different now from having read that. It's like, my God.
My life is simultaneously different, and I don't think I'll change.
Yep, that's fair.
I've learned more things and will continue to act the same.
Woo! Oh, God.
Oh,
but to that end comes a probably predictable answer from me. I like the 91 version better. Like I had more of a time enjoying what I was watching just for the fact of I liked the performances. I think everything felt a bit more even level with the tone. Like the tone kind of felt like it was all over the place, like you said, with a pianist character and everybody in the 62 version, and just like the whole nightmarish qualities. It was just hard to get through in the end. And so 91 is just kind of like, you know what, it's nothing special, but you know what, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it well enough. I will probably never watch it again, really. But I don't know if my life has been made worse for having seen it the first time. So, yeah.
You are now familiar with Hollywood history.
Hooray! And, as always, folks, if you see an elderly person being abused, please report it. Oh, God.
Please call 60 Minutes.
Oh, God. I don't know who you call in that situation.
I don't either.
We are not professionals.
Probably the first place you call is not a TV station.
Yeah, ideally. Maybe like it's a place where they specialize in these sorts of things, but maybe Dr. Phil.
Oh yeah, let's give him more money.
Oh God, yeah. Shit. Fuck you, Phil. Give us money.
Oh,
we're better than you.
People. I think so.
Yeah, low bar, I know, but still, you gotta have goals.
Oh, so I think I may know where you're going to go with this based on everything that you said about 62 and 91.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any suggestions this time around?
Honestly, I really don't necessarily know. Like, I'm trying to think. Like,
yeah, I thought that might be it.
I don't necessarily know what I could recommend for this. I guess if you want thrillers / horrors, there's a lot of classics back in the day. I mean, like fucking Psycho kind of has similar vibes.
So Psycho came out shortly before this.
Oh, hey.
And I'll actually, yeah.
Well, kind of good, prolific on my part.
And a movie we could cover in the future.
Remember
that that film with Vince Vaughn, the shot-for-shot remake?
I feel like that's just going to be shooting fish in a barrel at that point.
It quite possibly could, but it's out there. It's an option.
I mean, the fact that it's Vince Vaughn at all means okay, yeah, no, this is gonna be a bloodbath.
To be honest, I have not seen it, so I
Oh, same. I've only ever seen
I have plenty of internal thoughts, but
I've only ever seen the one still of it, which is just his character just kind of sort of covered in water, standing in a weird posture position. I see that same still all over the fucking place, but. Otherwise, I've not seen anything about it.
All
which
right.
I think is for the best. I've never had cholera, but I don't necessarily need to get it.
So
I don't know
you
why I
heard it.
picked.
Go watch Psycho.
I don't know why I picked cholera for that one. I don't know.
Yeah, that is cholera still a thing?
In poor countries, yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's pretty bad.
Uh-oh, my privilege is showing. Sorry, everybody.
I mean, it's okay. It's okay.
I apologize.
Yeah, says the two, each of us, each having. I'm guessing you have, at least have also gotten fully vaccinated for the whole thing going on. So privilege galore. We're making podcasts and bitching about old people getting their lives fucked up.
Yep, pretty much.
Woo! So to
Oh.
to reiterate, at I guess Psycho for the 62 version. For the 91 version, I don't know. Maybe I guess the It series, but we already covered that. There's a lot of those kinds of miniseries, a lot of Stephen King miniseries actually.
Well,
That
like the Langoliers or Tommyknockers or something?
Yeah, that are just kind of odd but hard to look away from. That are strangely compelling to watch. So yeah, really any of Stephen King's 90s series were actually pretty good. Like Children of the Corn or some shit, which I don't think was a series, but still.
No, that's an 80s film, but I mean, still, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Otherwise, that's all I can think of. You.
All right. So I have a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to mention, it's been a while since I saw it, but I remember liking it. It's the only possible thing I could have for the 91 version. But there's a 70s ABC movie of the week called Crowhaven Farm, which is sort of a small, thoughtful horror about witches, I believe.
Oh.
And I believe the whole thing is free online, possibly on YouTube, and you can just find it. I don't remember if it holds up. I enjoyed it at the time. It might be kind of slow and boring if I watched it now. I'm not sure, but you could give that a shot.
Fair.
So yeah, that's that. A couple of other things. So, director of the 62 film, Robert Aldrich, is a famous director in his own right, among many things that he did, including 62, obviously. He directed both The Dirty Dozen and The Longest Yard.
Oh.
And those are both things we could technically cover on the show, because The Longest Yard has been remade multiple times, one of which had Adam Sandler in it.
Oh, yeah.
And The Dirty Dozen could technically be a They Remade It Again, should we ever venture to that point, because the original Inglourious Bastards is a loose remake of it.
Oh.
So...
Huh. That's
we're getting
interesting.
all the chains in here.
Huh.
And the last thing I have is another mini-series. I've known about this series for a while. I have not watched the whole thing. I have only watched the first episode in preparation for this very podcast. But it was done in 2017. It's called Feud. And the original thought behind it was every season was going to document a different famous feud between two people. It kind of fell apart. They only got one season made, the first season, and it is about Bette Davis and Joan Crawford and their famous feud, and it's mostly focused on the making of this movie. Whatever happened to Baby Jane. Like I said, I've only seen the first episode, but already there's lots of things coming into play. The Coke and Pepsi machine thing that I brought up earlier has already started to show up. And it's got some great people in the role. Stanley Tucci plays the head of Warner Brothers. Alfred Molina is Robert Aldrich, the director.
Oh, so this is it's like a dramatized series. I thought it was like a documentary series.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, everyone's dead, mostly, and they didn't document a lot of it at the time.
Fair.
But, yeah, it's a drama series.
Huh.
Joan Crawford is played by Jessica Lange, who we recently saw in the role of Cora Papadakis in the 1981 Postman Always Rings Twice. So there you go, a little mini full circle for you at the end of the show.
Well, hot damn. Little bonus.
It's a lot of fun. It's funny because there's also elements from what I've seen. I don't know how far they go, but at the same time as all of this dramatized telling of the events of filming whatever happened to Baby Jane are going on, There's also a fake documentary being filmed about the life of Joan Crawford, with famous people coming in pretending to be other famous people. Like, Catherine Zeta-Jones has already showed up as Olivia de Havilland, who played opposite Bette Davis in a sort of spiritual sequel to Baby Jane called Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, I believe. So there are a lot of interesting things with this. And I plan on watching more episodes of it, too. I think there's like 8 episodes.
Yeah, that's weird.
But yeah, that's all I have for suggestions.
Cool.
Actually, I think I had 4. That's more than I've had in a while.
Yeah, I mean, this was a bigger film for you.
That is true, I guess.
Whereas I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
And we'll see what happens next time, because the next one we're recording, I haven't seen either of them, so I am looking forward to it.
Neither have I. I only learned about them because I was watching an informational video on YouTube.
Wow.
I have not seen jack about these. I'm excited for them, but I haven't seen them.
I have not seen Jack about these, but I did see Jack starring Robin Williams, so I think I have a leg up.
Hey, I'm going to punch myself in the face.
Okay.
Let's get to the socials.
All right, so go ahead and follow us and rate us and leave comments and reviews for us on any of your podcasting platforms. We're on what is now known as Apple Podcasts, previously iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbay, Podbean, iHeartRadio, all those good ones. Our host is Anchor. You can listen to us on there, but you can also use it to record your own podcasts. It has a built-in editor, which is very easy to use. Hashtag not an ad, hashtag could be an ad.
Hashtag please be an ad.
Hashtag thank you, Anchor.
Hashtag sell out. Hashtag worth it.
The moment I sell out, I will let everyone know. That's not a secret thing. Like,
yeah, no, it's like, man, I got bills, bro.
Look at this. I have to file a new tax return form. Come on. So you can go ahead and email us at theyremadeit@gmail.com with anything you have regarding the podcast, whether it be comments, suggestions for future episodes. Just wanting to say hi. I'll say hi back.
Hi.
I'll say hi back. Yeah.
Like that.
Look, we just did it. You just did it. All right, go ahead. Exercise. Say hi. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. This is a 4D experience at this point.
Woo! Just have it pipe through on each headphone ear. I don't know how to program that, so I'm not going to do it. Program, edit, I don't know.
I can probably, in the editing, I don't know if I want to do that, but in the editing process, I could make you left and I could make myself right. So we're like on either side of the person.
We're in the room with you.
I could do that.
Yeah, if you want. Thanks to Anchor.
I don't think I will. Yeah, thank you, Anchor. We can make our podcast worse if we want.
Yeah, my God. We can make our podcast straight up invasive.
You can feel my hot breath on your neck.
Oh, God. Let's wrap this up before we start getting lawsuits.
And go ahead and follow us at It Remade on Twitter, and They Remade It at Instagram, where I post podcast updates, future episodes, upcoming episodes that are possible, or what a normal person would say is possible future episodes, and also these little full circle diagrams that I make, which I enjoy making, and there is no shortage because we keep racking them up.
Yeah, no, like, as always, Hollywood's bag of snakes.
Yep, there's always going to be connections. In fact, interesting thing, short thing for people who stuck around this long, this won't take long, I actually have been putting together, like, data on the full circles that we've done in the past, just because I store all that information, because I'm a crazy person.
Of course.
And every single movie we've covered on this show has connected to another movie we have covered on the show, except for the following: Infernal Affairs, 2017's Ghost in the Shell, 1981's Clash of the Titans, The Secret World of Arrietty, 2003's The Music Man, and 1954's Seven Samurai. So excluding those 6, out of the over 100 movies we've talked about on the show, only 6 of them have not connected to another one that we've talked about.
I'm honestly kind of shocked, but also glad that the Ghost in the Shell remake does not connect to anything.
Yeah.
It's like, thank God, it's isolated.
Because, like, Seven Samurai Infernal Affairs makes sense because they're foreign films. And,
Yeah.
You know, we've only covered a handful of those. From
Even Arrietty.
Both Japan and Germany. Arrietty too. It's Japanese. So half of those are foreign movies too. So
yeah. Fuck Ghost in the Shell remake. Honestly, it's been a while since we've been able to bash it. We tend to go to the Departed. Check your
so easy.
Check your bingo cards. Got where we were in the process.
I think I had just finished The Socials. I improv'd too hard, I think, and then just lost everything.
we went from it's a very fine line with us when going from improv to just like waffling.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which, like, hey, there are worse things to do. We got some entertainment out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I like it.
Oh,
But yeah, that's all of the socials we have. I guess I don't think I have any other. I mean, I don't have like a. I don't know what's another social media. I mean, we don't have a Facebook, and we probably won't be getting one.
So, I'd say, as always, I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
And have a good night, as always.
Bye.
You wouldn't be able to do these awful things to me if I weren't still in this chair. But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair. And tell me, what are these awful things I'm supposed to be doing to you?